After recognizing myself and the ranking member, my good friend Mr. Deutsch, for 5 minutes each for our opening statements, I will then recognize members seeking recognition for 1 minute. We will then hear from our witnesses. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And without objection, your written statements will be made a part of the record, and members may have 5 days to insert statements and questions for the record, subject to the length limitation in the rules. And I'd like to tell our witnesses that our parties are having their conferences right now, and they're just getting out, so I'm sure that people will be filtering in. The Chair now recognizes herself for 5 minutes. The stabilization and reconstruction operations in Iraq were, at the time, the largest such project of its kind that the United States government ever undertook. But for all of the good intentions, it was a program replete with challenges, overpromises, setbacks, and shortcomings. Of course, it had its share of accomplishments and successes as well, but at the end of the day, when we look back at our approach to the rebuilding of Iraq, we're left with an overall sense that there were too many errors, that fraud was widespread, and that there was an unnecessary amount of waste of taxpayer dollars, U.S. taxpayer dollars. Not long into the Iraq conflict, it became clear that our expectations for a limited post-conflict engagement gave way to the realities on the ground, hard realities. Our mission would quickly have to shift from a short-term operation to a long-term, protracted rebuilding effort that would require large amounts of human and financial capital that we had neither the planning nor the capability to conduct. The Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction and his excellent team spent 9 years, countless hours, analyzing our efforts in Iraq in order to identify the challenges that we faced, what we did wrong, where we succeeded, and most importantly, what happened to the $60 billion in taxpayer money used to fund the rebuilding of Iraq. What was concluded painted a very grim picture of our ability to adequately plan, execute, and oversee large-scale stability and reconstruction operations. According to the Inspector General, as much as $3 to $5 billion were wasted from the Iraq Relief and Reconstruction Fund alone due to poor accountability, and as much as $8 billion overall. Many projects in Iraq ran over budget and behind schedule because of a lack of oversight and lack of accountability, like the Basra Children's Hospital. According to the Inspector General's reports, this hospital was supposed to cost $50 million, but ran over to over $165 million and fell more than a year behind schedule. Another mismanaged project was the Fallujah wastewater treatment system. The IG found that the initial $30 million project tripled in cost to nearly $100 million and only reached 1/3 of the homes originally planned. These are but a few examples, but they may prove valuable and the need for improved oversight going into the future. The lessons learned and the recommendations put forth in the Inspector General's final report, and I hope that everyone will have a chance to look at it, Learning from Iraq, a final report from the Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction, and all of the members have the book, serves as an important tool for the United States government and for us in the United States Congress as we find ourselves facing a shift in the post-conflict role in Afghanistan. Our efforts in Afghanistan have already replaced those of Iraq as its nation's largest ever stabilization and reconstruction operation. Among the many challenges we faced in Iraq that the Inspector General highlights were a deteriorating security situation and inadequate oversight over the projects and programs being implemented. Yet for all of the challenges that we faced and the deficiencies that we encountered, nearly all of them lead back to the fact that we did not have a proper plan in place beforehand, which hampered our ability to execute and oversee stabilization and rebuilding operations properly. We have spent nearly $100 billion in Afghanistan under similar circumstances as Iraq, yet we still find ourselves making many of the same mistakes that we cannot afford to make as we prepare to withdraw our troops from Afghanistan at the end of 2014. It is likely that the United States will find itself in a similar position when examining future reconstruction efforts. In Haiti, a recent GAO report that I commissioned illustrated the lack of coordination and inadequate use of funds between the USAID and the State Department. In Syria, we must prepare for the possibility that similar efforts may be needed in a post-Assad era as the conflict further cripples the country's infrastructure. In order to ensure that we maintain the know-how to properly plan, execute, and oversee any future similar operations, we must learn from the lessons of Iraq. We must centralize unity of command, advocate for better interagency coordination, and use our funds wiser, more efficiently, and more effectively. And with that, I will turn to my ranking member, Mr. Deutsch, for his opening statement.